Hey VC, how's it going? Matt here. Gonna do a quick solo video, and I say quick, it's probably gonna get a little bit rambly in this one, but we did film a record run video last night, so keep an eye out for that to hopefully be posted in the next week or so, probably closer to the or so deadline. We're not really hard and fast with those deadlines, so apologize for that, but there will be one forthcoming, so yeah, kind of just keep an eye out, like I said. But this video is in response to a couple of people that have recently asked me about the book The Endless Trip. Christopher Cahill from the UK sent me a very nice message, private message on YouTube, kind of asking about it, if I would talk maybe a little bit more about it in a message. Wasn't asking me to do a video, but I've had some other people like Jason, Funnyface26 over in the UK as well, that I've been talking to quite a bit about that book, and another one that I'm going to show as well that I just recently acquired. So I thought, why not just do a video and talk about the research materials that I have for looking up some of this psychedelic stuff, garage stuff, or just records in general. Kind of ripping this video off from Mark Ditch over the Glass Orchid Aftermath as well, though he did a video like this a few years ago, which I highly recommend checking out. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to show in this video, he showed in his video. So Mark, always the guru for me and when it comes to a lot of this research material. So first up, books that I think most of us will own, or should own maybe even, and it doesn't appeal just to psychedelic enthusiasts like myself. This can go for anybody. This book, a price guide of American recordings, you know, it's everybody's kind of familiar with the price guide layout. I actually honestly haven't opened this book in about 2 years now. I used to use it all the time when I bought records. I would look it up, mark off what record I bought, kind of check the price to see if I got something fair, but I use Discogs now mainly for my gauge of pricing and things like that. But this is really useful in quickly checking an artist's discography. Like, you can look it up online, but if you don't happen to be by your computer or your phone's dead or something, you can pull up this bad boy and look up the discography of just about any American artist or British artist if they were fairly popular. Now, it's not going to have the crazy private release kind of stuff, but a nice guide to have nonetheless, and just for general reference. Next up, a couple books like this. This is 1,000 Recordings to Hear Before You Die. This has albums as well as individual songs. It's mainly albums, but you know, a few major songs from an artist that maybe not necessarily was a one-hit wonder, but sort of represents their catalog. It's a pretty decent book. Another one that I used to use a lot more for reference when I was first getting into discovering music again and collecting records and things like that. It was kind of a way to check off some heavy hitters quickly and kind of get snippet reviews of things like that. And then the Mojo collection. Mojo's kind of year by year, starting from like mid-50, it looks like 1953, and this particular edition goes through, I want to say like 2004, 2005, and of course I can't find it. It looks like, yeah, about 2004. It gives you sort of highlights from each year, certain albums to look out for. You know, so 67 has like Sgt. Pepper's. I think it even has Satanic Majesty's Request. If I can get there really quickly, like I said, this might be a little bit of a rambling video. Creamed Israeli Gears, Tim Buckley's Goodbye and Hello, Electric Music for the Mind and Body by Country Joe and the Fish. So those are all 1967 selections, and it spans the decades, it spans different genres, so it's a good way to kind of get familiar with albums that are considered great by critics. And you know, kind of like the Rolling Stones 500 Greatest Albums list, it's a good way to familiarize yourself with different music that maybe you hadn't heard before and that is considered great, and then you can branch out and find things by that artist or in that genre that you might like. So that kind of covers it for reference material and books that cover the gamut, that cover the wide spectrum of music in general. And now I'm going to get into more specific stuff regarding psychedelic music research. So I did shout out Mark Ditch already, Glass Orchid Aftermath. This is a cool way too. Check out zines. There's a lot of electronic zines, you know, blogs and things like that you can check out. A lot of them still make print ones as well that you can subscribe to. Mark made a fantastic little one that ran about 7 issues, I believe, if I'm counting correctly here real quick in my hand. It's a great way to get some more underground type stuff as well. They tend to get a little more off the beaten path, dive a little bit deeper into the particular genre that the zine is for, like punk, tons of punk zines. There's quite a few different psychedelic ones as well, so it's a great way to familiarize yourself with some more obscure materials. And another way to do that as well is with magazines like The Ugly Things or Mojo or Flashback, Shindig. All of those are great. Mark Ditch happens to have an article in this particular Ugly Things magazine, so this is sort of a Glass Orchid Aftermath retrospective, I guess. I don't know. But no, Mark's a cool guy and knows his stuff, so he just happens to have his hand in a lot of my reference material around here. But they highlight in this one, they talk about Brian Jones quite a bit. They cover a girl group called the Clingers that I was unfamiliar with, but there's like a huge 20 or 30 page article about them in this particular issue that's fantastic. Talks a lot about them hanging out with Dennis Wilson when he was sort of hanging out with Charles Manson as well, so it's kind of cool connections there. And they do little reviews of reissues and things like that. They do different interviews with obscure artists. Like I said, it's a good way to kind of get familiar with more underground obscure stuff, but then they also cover some heavy hitters as well. They're great magazines. Then if you want to get more into books, this is a cool one here by Jim DeRogatis. Totally didn't pronounce his name correctly, I'm sure. This is called Turn on Your Mind, 4 Decades of Great Psychedelic Rock. That's exactly what it is. It spans from the 60s through the early 2000s, discussing psychedelic music. I really appreciated the neo-psych stuff, especially the 80s Paisley Underground revival and things like that. It was a lot of music that I wasn't familiar with that I've since discovered, stuff like Rainy Day and Mazzy Star and things like that. So cool stuff there, and it mainly focuses on the 60s and 70s, and then it spends a lot of time in the 80s as well, but kind of a cool way to check off against some heavy hitters. And it covers British and American psychedelic rock. A lot of times you'll find books that cover just one or the other, and this splits about equal time to both, which is really cool. And these books are really handy as well. These are the 33 1/3 series. You can get them at independent bookstores and record stores. I know Euclid Records in St. Louis carries them. This particular one is about Love's Forever Changes album. They have an interesting process for this. You can submit an idea for a book and offer to write it for them, but you have to sort of submit the idea, you know, put together like a formal perspective about the book, and your qualifications, why you should be the one to write the book. You know, are you a writer? Have you ever been paid to write? Things like that. And then if they choose your book, you get to write it, and then they issue it and publish it, which is very, very cool. But sometimes, you know, you get amateur writers that just kind of regurgitate information that they found. Other times you get some insightful material and information and ideas about bands, and this one is one of the better ones. I do like this one quite a bit. This is by Andrew Holtkrans. Again, butchered another name, so if you're watching, which you aren't, I apologize. But no, cool stuff there. 33 1/3 series, check them out. That's great stuff. Alright, that's sort of peripheral, that's secondary, that's a lot of material that I like to read, you know, in my study, in my library, the toilet. But then I have the heavy hitters, the stuff that I think is essential for anybody that's really, really wanting to dive into psychedelic research and look into more obscure albums, find new artists that you didn't know about. Again, a great resource is the internet, YouTube. If you look up an album, like look up 50 Foot Hose, right? You go to find the full album on YouTube. In the sidebar, there's going to be a list of recommendations that are based off of the video that you're watching. So you can find some great stuff that way as well. But if you want to just look in a book, have a notepad next to you and write down artists and the album and maybe a little snippet about each one, these are essential. These are the heavy hitters. These are the big time books that you want to have. So I have to give a shout out, and this is long overdue. I should have done this with some VCLT stuff I'd shown previously but hadn't. A guy I've gotten to know really well through Facebook, through our Psychedelic Experience radio show. A gentleman named Brian, who lives out in Connecticut. Chat with him almost daily, sharing different psychedelic clips from YouTube or just cool stuff that we've come across, either record digging or finding in books and things like that. I sent him a package not too long ago, and he sent me one in return, which was totally above and beyond what I sent him. He sent me a few books. They're books that I had on my want list for a long time, but had never found at a price, a price that I was comfortable paying. And he hooked me up big time. This is the Fuzz, Acid, and Flowers series. This is the main compendium, kind of the book one, and then this was the kind of part 2 that they issued, sort of some corrections, some additional albums and things like that that they left out. These are fantastic. I just honestly can't recommend these enough. I think this is the first edition, and they've had 3 or 4 subsequent editions released, you know, with updated information. They have pictures of albums, pictures of bands. There's a couple full color sections with album covers, so you kind of get a sense of some of the cooler looking things of the time. But this particular book, what they do, it's alphabetical by artist. They'll give a little bit of a background on the artist, maybe some snippets of reviews on particular albums. So in this one here, I've got this opened to the human beings. They list the personnel, you know, who was in the band, usually a picture of an album. They list the albums, the titles, what year they came out, and if they charted, right, if they reached the top 100 on the charts. A lot of times they'll list 45s, if I can talk, as well, and then they go into background detail, so it's not going to show up real well there, but kind of background information, a little bit of info on each album, so it doesn't dive real deep into reviews and things like that. So it's a great way to get a list of albums by artists and get an idea of their catalog and maybe what their sound was. You know, it'll say like, these guys are often considered psychedelic, but they're more pop or they're more blues. So you have a general idea of maybe what you're looking for, and then you get a better idea of it from this particular little snippet review, things like that. And then he also sent me, that's American Psych, by the way, the Fuzz, Acid, and Flowers, American Psych. And this one, the Tapestry of Delights, is British Psych. It's quite a bit thicker than the American one, because these guys, Vernon Johnson, I believe, yeah, Vernon Johnson? Again, I'm butchering names. I'm not good with names. But anyway, this gentleman that edits the book, compiles the book, is from Great Britain. So, of course, his wealth of knowledge is going to be in that vein as well, but it's set up exactly the same. One or two full-color sections, album snippets, pictures, little bitty reviews, background information on bands. Fantastic. I mean, this, even if you're just a guy that's like, I really like the Beatles and the Stones and Pink Floyd, get the background information that they provide on just those bands in here is worth it alone. And then you get all the peripheral stuff like groups, for example, like Raw Material. I have no idea. I've never heard of Raw Material. They provide a rarity rating as well for some of these. You know, if it's uber rare, it's like an R5. If it's not too rare, it's marked SC for scarce. Things like that. So you get an idea of maybe what kind of luck you're going to have stumbling across these. So, Brian, thank you again so much, man. I know I've talked to you about it on Facebook a lot, but these are essential. These are fantastic books. But they're not the Holy Bible, right? They're not the, those are heavy hitters. But here's like your cleanup power hitter. Mr. Richard Morton Jack edited these. This is The Endless Trip. This is American Psychedelic Music. And this is my newest purchase, the Galactic Ramble, the British counterpart to The Endless Trip, British Psychedelic Music. I bought The Endless Trip based on Mark Ditch's Glass Orchid Aftermath, another shout out, and Bo Earhead 6, based on their recommendation. Oh gosh, I've had this book probably 4 or 5 years now. Have not regretted ponying up. I paid like $100 for this book. Do not regret it at all. I've never paid more than $30 for an album, and I paid $100 for a book about albums. That's how invaluable I think that this book is. There's 3 full-color photo sections, but this is set up a little bit different. It is still alphabetical by artist, but instead of providing background information on the band, they take it album by album and do reviews. So, alright, here we'll find a heavy hitter here real quick. Quicksilver Messenger Service self-titled album. A snippet from Billboard Magazine, from Go Magazine, Rolling Stone Magazine, Hi-Fi Stereo Review, Jazz and Pop, Downbeat Magazine, American Record Guide from 1968, and then a current review by Aaron Malinsky, who's my favorite reviewer in the contemporary reviews in this book. Richard Morton Jack is great as well, but Aaron Malinsky, we seem to have similar tastes, but this is phenomenal. Such a great book. And then I did recently grab a copy of this on eBay, Galactic Ramble. It's set up exactly the same, so I won't talk a whole lot about this other than it's, you know, the British counterpart, so it's British psychedelic music. Great stuff on the Beatles and Pink Floyd and the Rolling Stones and the Kinks and things like that in here, but this one, so the American Psych one, it's a lot thicker, there's more groups, but it makes sense. America's much larger. There were a lot more psych bands than there were in Great Britain at the time. And they cover the period about 1965 through 73, 74, 75. So about 10 years of a time period that they cover in both books. But the British one, I was shocked at how much stuff, I don't have any idea what these are. Like 95% or more in this book, I've never heard of it, which is perfect. That's exactly why I seek these books out, because I want to find new music. I want to find new stuff to check out. I want to dive deep into the rivers of psychedelia and psychedelic rock from the 60s and 70s, and these books are a perfect way to do that. So I just wanted to take a few minutes that turned into like 15 or so minutes to review those a little bit, let you know about them, share them, go into depth a little bit more, so that in our videos when I do reference the Endless Trip says about this, or the Galactic Ramble says, or Fuzz, Acid, and Flower says, you'll know what I'm talking about and have an idea of where those thoughts you know, that I'm regurgitating came from. And it gives you an idea too if you're looking for research material or stuff that more to be able to dive more into psychedelic rock and certain albums that you want to pick up. Those are all great ways to get into it and to dive deeper. So I've rambled long enough. I'm gonna let you guys go. I'm getting ready to go see the new Born Identity movie with my wife. So happy Friday night, and we'll see you guys later. Take care.